Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA Karen Reddit stories. In this r/just no HOA story, imagine being a single dad raising 2 kids alone when some power-hungry HOA Karen decides your backyard pool makes you a criminal. She then starts spreading rumors that you kidnapped your own kids, which sounds insane, right? Well, it got even worse. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is an Ask Reddit HOA story. So this story is not about me, but one of my best friends who lived in an HOA 18 years ago. It started out with no issues for several years, and then one day everything changed. We worked as mechanics together, but he had a second job, a gun shop/range in the evenings, and the shop was very popular and they had open hours for the range, but many of the popular times were reserved for paying members. They started doing construction on the range, allowing for more lanes and allowing for higher calibers to be used at the range. Because of the construction, there was many times the range would be closed with a few hours open for members only, and they were not accepting new members at the time. This is what started everything. His neighbor across the street, the HOA president, wanted to use the gun range, and my buddy had to explain that the only reservations for times were for existing members. The president wanted an exception, which my buddy couldn't accommodate, and the president made my buddy's life hell. He was getting fines for frivolous things left and right now. His townhome had a garage, which my buddy keeps a project car in, and there's no room to work on the car, so it is just stored in there. During the winter, he moves it to another friend's garage and works on it, and every time my friend moved his motorcycle or the trash out of the garage and the president can see the incomplete car, he got a fine every single time just for opening his garage. The fines were for working on a vehicle in the HOA. He started moving the trash cans through the house and kept his motorcycle in the living room. His neighbor got a flat tire and my buddy helped the neighbor change the tire. Another fine then for working on a car. Neighbor got a fine too. A bunch of other frivolous things as well, and the HOA had a groundskeeper/maintenance man that worked for this president. Did odd jobs around the complex, plowed the snow, did yard work on public areas, etc. And friend catches this guy hopping his fence to snoop around his backyard. He sends his dog after him, then restrains him face down in a pile of dog poop at gunpoint until the police arrive. He is then arrested for trespassing, and it comes out that he was here illegally and got deported. The HOA got a massive fine, like around $75,000, for having an illegal alien on the payroll. Suddenly, my buddy gets a massive fine, ironically the same amount as the amount the HOA received as a fine. The fine was apparently for owning a gun and restraining one of their employees, bunch of trumped-up charges, and the HOA president was an ambulance chaser lawyer, and all the fines were issued by his law practice. My friend's uncle is a lawyer in another state, but put him in touch with a lawyer here to help with this nonsense, and found out that our state has some rule that you cannot issue a fine in retaliation to a fine, and the HOA president was using his practice to issue these fines, which was illegal. Either way, the HOA president ended up getting disbarred and got legal charges for harassment, and the fines ended up going away. And the HOA president ended up losing his house and moving out. My buddy moved out today and the HOA like a year later when he bought a larger house, but we still laugh about all the nonsense that happened in like 2008. And yeah guys, if you want to hear more interesting Ask Reddit stories, please let me know in the comments, but either way, we will now switch to the next HOA story, which is absolutely insane. It is titled HOA Karen Called 911 on a single dad and claims his pool is illegal. And by the way, if you enjoy HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and let me know where you are watching from today. So I'm a single dad, and while that was never part of the plan, I love my 2 kids more than anything else. After my wife died, I decided that it would be a good idea to move somewhere else, try to get a fresh start kind of thing, and the house is not actually in an HOA. It was built before the surrounding neighborhood and was grandfathered in when the HOA formed. My property line actually borders several HOA homes, which is why some people assumed that I was part of it. I did not even know about the HOA until after I bought the house and moved in. Once I found out about the HOA though, I didn't really give it a second thought. My house was separate, so why would I really pay it any mind, right? Well, so there's this lady, I will just call her Karen here, and she is the president of the neighboring HOA and acts like she's a cop from North Korea or something, like crazy thinking that her ever-tiny thing is some serious crap and cannot seem to get it through her head that I am not in her HOA. Within the first few months of moving in, I already had a stack of complaints from her. She mainly loved to complain that my kids were being too loud. Because yes, 2 small kids actually playing outside instead of her kids who were constantly glued to a screen were a huge problem in her mind. The noise was mainly them laughing and having a good time, but that is not where the complaints stopped. She also was sending me complaints that my house was not up to the standards of the HOA, telling me that I should give it fresh paint or maybe put a garden in the front yard so it looks nicer. She even suggested that I join the HOA to help the community be one and grow strong and other crap like that. Even if I wanted to join, I couldn't due to being outside of their borders. I thought saying no might just get her to shut up, but instead it just got me more complaints, leaflets being left on my door, and rumors spreading around. The thing about being a single dad is that rumors can easily happen and get out of control. Karen talking would not be the first time, and I doubt it'll be the last. I've heard everything from her walking out to being on drugs and everything in between, and yeah, it is sick. Karen's rumor that she had going around now might have been the worst. She was claiming that I may have kidnapped my own kids and was abusing them, that the noises they made were not having fun, but me hurting them. It actually made me feel physically sick. I tried ignoring it because that's usually the only way to deal with people like her. If you give them attention, they grow. But she was not the kind of person who went away when ignored, she escalated instead. The more I didn't react, the more she seemed convinced that she was some hero, protecting her precious community from me. The pool was the next thing she fixated on. I bought a small pool for my kids because summers get brutal here and it gave them something fun and safe to enjoy. It was not big or anything, but she suddenly decided that pools were illegal, citing bylaws that meant nothing to me. I got a permit for it and followed county rules, and this was just her being insane about it. Karen said, "Pools are not something I allow in this neighborhood. You're going to need to get the water out and take it down. This is your warning." Me, and I didn't know that we were living in North Korea. Do you want me to just drain the pool or make sure to salute you first? Wouldn't want to go against your fascist regime or anything. Karen, are you trying to insult me? Me, surprised you picked up on that considering how subtle I was being. I took my kids inside after that. I had a feeling she might say some words not appropriate for their ears. The first time that she called the cops, she was claiming noise issues. I explained that they saw happy kids with wet hair and popsicles, and then they left. They mentioned that if the calls continued, they would need to have a conversation with her about misuse of emergency services, and the second time was when she crossed the line completely. She called them saying the same crappy rumor she was spreading before, that I was abusing my kids and possibly kidnapped them, lying about seeing bruising on them, and the cops had no choice but to check it out. They were gentle about it, but they still had to ask questions, they still had to look, they still had to see for themselves that my kids were not only unharmed, but laughing, fed, well, and living a normal life. They had to make sure that I was not in the system and that I hadn't taken my kids. I was cleared, but that's the kind of thing people never stop talking about. The police told me that her calling twice for fake reports was something they would deal with. I never found out though if she was warned or fined or anything for her behavior. Looking into anything regarding Karen was just a waste of my time. I started documenting everything, every notice, every rumor, every officer visit, every time she crossed onto my property line, every worthless pamphlet she taped to my door. I kept all of this in a folder. I don't know exactly what I would do with it yet, but I knew I needed it. Things reached a breaking point not long after the false reports. It was like she sensed I was not reacting to it anymore, so she had to find another line to cross. One afternoon I came home from work to find a printed notice taped to my front door claiming my pool was being flagged for violating HOA safety standards. She had even included some photos of my backyard taken from the alley with measurements and alleged violations listed. That was the moment I realized she was full-on delusional. She really thought she had this level of authority. I've seen crossing guards with more power than Karen, and other people started to realize that she was not right either. Neighbors were actually getting to know me by this point, and they could see that I was just being a good dad. They could see my kids happy and made their own opinions now that Karen was the problem. I got a couple apologies even, and I accepted them. The moment everything truly snapped though was when she sent out a mass newsletter to the entire HOA. In the middle of her usual rambling about weeds and fence colors, she included a paragraph about certain unmembered properties in the vicinity, creating safety hazards, according to her, with unapproved water features and inadequate supervision of minors. She didn't name me directly, but everyone knew exactly who she was talking about, and she had attached a grainy photo of my backyard that was clearly taken from someone's second-floor window. Some nice neighbor left a copy in my mailbox so I could know what Karen was doing. I didn't have to do anything too dramatic, I didn't have to scream, threaten or demand. All I had to do was wait for her to take one step too far, one that the law and the community could not ignore. And she had finally given it to me in writing. I knew what my next move was gonna be, and after everything she put me and my kids through, it was not just about stopping her anymore. It was instead about making sure she could never do this to anyone again. She had escalated from annoying to dangerous, and at that point it was not about pride anymore, it was about protecting my kids and making sure nobody ever took her seriously again. I took my folder with all my documentation and decided to send an email. One going out to each and every member of the HOA board. Staying calm and civil in it, I showed them everything I had against Karen. Telling them that I was not a member of the HOA, as I previously expressed to Karen, I just stuck to the facts, what Karen did and how it could implicate the entire HOA in a lawsuit for harassment. I did not even hear back from Karen, but I heard from almost everyone else. Several board members wrote back, embarrassed, apologizing, insisting they had no idea that she had been interfering with a non-HOA property. One of them even admitted that they had warned her multiple times to stop harassing me, and she simply ignored them. Then the big one came, formal message saying the board would be holding an emergency meeting regarding her conduct and that I was welcome to attend or submit additional info. I did not attend, I didn't need to, I had already said everything there was to say. Apparently the meeting got loud quickly, neighbors who had believed her started realizing they had been lied to for months. Parents were furious she had weaponized child abuse allegations, the one thing nobody should ever use as ammunition. Even the people who used to defend her had now gone silent. By the end of the week, Karen had been stripped of her position as HOA president, and every board member signed a statement confirming I was not part of the HOA and they had no authority over me or my property. The board also sent me an official letter apologizing for the harassment and confirming in writing that I had no HOA obligations. About a week later, I found a brief handwritten note from Karen in my mailbox, clearly written under pressure, without any eye contact or conversation. Just like that, the storm she created finally broke. My kids went back to playing in the yard without people staring at us or whispering. The police stopped coming to my house as well. The nasty rumors dried up faster than I expected, and once Karen was not pumping poison in the neighborhood anymore, everyone seemed to calm down. She had spent all that time trying to control me and scare me and shame me, and in the end, all she managed to do was destroy her own reputation and lose the little authority she had. Things have been quiet ever since the board removed her, which honestly feels like a completely different world compared to the chaos she created for my family before. My kids finally get to play outside without anyone staring like we are a spectacle. I don't get strange looks when I walk to get the mail. Nobody watches my house like they are waiting for something to happen. The best part is that people slowly started treating me like a normal neighbor instead of whatever monster she tried painting me as. A couple of families even apologized for believing her nonsense at first. Some admitted that they had been intimidated by her and didn't want to get on her bad side, which honestly explained a lot. It didn't make what they did right, but at least it made sense. Meanwhile, Karen practically vanished. Not literally, but the difference was night and day. She stopped walking around the neighborhood with her clipboard and she stopped patrolling the streets, looking for imaginary violations. She stopped monitoring my yard like it was a crime scene. Without the title of HOA president boosting her ego, she suddenly had no power to wave in anyone's face, and without the board backing her, nobody had to take her seriously anymore. I heard from a neighbor later that she tried running for the board position again during the next election cycle, but she lost by a landslide. Apparently, people had not forgotten the stunts she pulled with my family, and nobody wanted to hand her any more authority. Losing the presidency once was bad enough for her ego, I guess. Losing it permanently, though, that was the real karma. I never joined the HOA and never will. I don't owe them anything, but at least now, everyone there knows better than to try dragging me into their nonsense again. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I own a farm that has existed long before I was born, and my hope is that it will still be around and doing good work long after I am gone. The farm really has not changed much and might be what some of you might think of when you hear the word farm. I have crops, animals, a barn, a horse, a tractor, and even overalls. I think the basic nature of my farm is part of the beauty of things. Everything else changes so quickly, but farms kind of end up in a time capsule. The area used to be all rural, with farms and ranches and just overall large plots of land. Most of the people got bought out, though, by a developer wanting to turn the area into a more suburban neighborhood for people with more money. I wouldn't call it a gated community because there are not any actual gates, but it's the same general idea. The development sprung up and honestly, I think the whole place was kind of ugly. All the houses were built like they came from a mold, all the same and no personality or anything put into it. I'm sure some people like that kind of thing, but it would never be the kind of place for me. Now, after most of the homes got sold, more changes ended up happening around the town. The local grocery store ended up run out of business and instead a chain one that I don't want to name popped up instead. It was hard seeing some other local businesses shut down because these people came and then wanted to change everything. There are probably a lot of not nice people living in that area, but the only one I'm gonna talk about is Karen. Now, Karen was the leader of the local HOA that the community decided it needed for some reason. I'm not in the community, meaning I'm not part of the HOA. That did not stop me from learning who Karen was fairly quickly though. If you were in town and Karen was too, you would always hear her complaining about things being old, like, Karen, it's an old rural area, that is what things are like here. She insulted locals right to our faces too. She had in her mind that everybody should be and act like her. I tried to picture that I might wake up in a cold sweat at 3 AM. But well, I soon met Karen personally because I started getting letters from her in the mail. They were all HOA fines, and no matter what, the complaint she was able to go for was at least a page. I cannot remember them all to share with you, but I do have a couple of examples that should paint the picture pretty clearly. Things like my barn being too visible and my tractor not being a coded vehicle. I wrote back and explained that I'm not in the HOA, so the rules don't apply to me. I never got a reply back aside from just more fines. That all led up to the day that I met Karen face to face as she came to my farm. She knocked on my door and I opened it to find her standing there and holding her nose. I don't think anything smelled bad and she was just being dramatic about everything. She had told me that my violations have added up and since I had not paid anything, the HOA had the right to come and collect. She told me that with all 37 fines I racked up, it would be enough to take my entire farm away from me. Nobody told her that threatening a farmer was a bad idea because now she had gotten me angry. You do not make threats to take away a man's farm. Me, do you have corn in your ears? I told you that I'm not part of your little HOA. The houses are over there and I'm over here. Now stop sending me fines for things that don't even apply to me. And don't you dare threaten my farm again. I shut the door right in her face after that and figured that she got the message. I hadn't heard from her again in a while, so I thought it was done and over with, but I was wrong because Karen had come back a few weeks later and I was ready to tear her a new one again. She cut me off though. Karen, I have right here paperwork that shows this farm is HOA property. We let you stay here out of kindness, but with you continuously breaking our rules and starting trouble, we are formally telling you that you need to leave. Me, you don't own this land. It has been in my family for generations. Karen, I have the papers right here. Me, and I have papers saying the land is mine, so if you want to fight me for the property, we will take our papers to court and they will tell you what I'm about to now, without you needing to pay for a lawyer. This is my farm and you don't own it. You don't have rights to it and you cannot tell me what to do on it. Karen, we will see about that. Just remember that we asked you to leave. What I expected was for Karen to file some kind of lawsuit against me and try to make a judge believe that her phony paperwork was real. Instead, she had taken to harassing me at every turn and even causing problems on my farm. Karen, along with other HOA people, would come onto my farm and try to cause trouble while I was sleeping. After the first day when I caught my fence being damaged, I added security cameras to try and catch them in the act. It took about 3 more acts of vandalism though before I got Karen's face on camera good enough to take it to the police. She was arrested for trespassing and destruction of private property. She had put holes in my barn, yanked out crops and harassed my animals. She was lucky she didn't try and mess with my horse though, because she would have kicked Karen right through a stable door. Of course, Karen was furious about getting arrested and claimed that I was framing her to get out of paying my HOA fines. While she was guilty of doing those things based on video footage, she still thought it would be a good idea to try and fight over the land. But this time there was more at stake, because if she won, it meant charges would be dropped based on it being not my property. She should have been nervous, but her ego was not gonna allow her to be. She waltzed right into court and started making outrageous claims right out of the gate. Her lawyer was claiming that I had surrendered my land to the HOA when it was first developed and then was trying to go back on that deal. With it, I would be able to squat on the land and avoid taxes and things like that. She told stories of our interactions, but in those I was screaming and threatening her with a gun if she tried to take back the land. She made it come off like she was terrified for her life and I was some kind of big monster trying to take advantage of her. I could even see her smirk at me while pretending to cry and be traumatized. She sure was a better actor than I could ever be, but I had a weapon that did not need good acting skills, which is the truth. I showed all my paperwork of owning the property and old deeds showing how long it was in my family for, even property surveys that showed where the farm ended and where the HOA had jurisdiction over. Karen just had the one paperwork claiming that it was HOA property, but nothing to actually back that piece of paper up. We were also able to poke a huge hole in her story, since she had changed it from HOA taking my property to it already belonging to them. My finds did not even make any sense. I brought those two and showed them to the judge, who agreed that they were long-winded and clearly just trying to attack me for things that came with being a farmer. The judge was also very interested in the fact that she had sent me exactly 37 fines. It turned out that 37 was the magic number the HOA needed in order to try and put a lien on somebody's property. Despite the HOA not being around for that long, Karen had managed to give those 37 fines to multiple homes, both inside and outside of the HOA boundaries. She was extorting money basically, and for her it would be a win either way, because she either extorts money or steals the land. But it gets even more juicy the deeper that Karen's past was dug into by both the courts and the local media. So before Karen had moved here, she was in a different HOA that had been shut down due to misappropriation of funds and attempts of illegal house liens. Nobody here was gonna believe a word that she said or believe her fake paperwork. She was found guilty and given some severe fines of her own to pay to the county. I think what was best for me came after the court case and her past and stuff all came out to the public. She was seen as the scam artist that she was, and nobody wanted anything to do with her. She was kicked out of the HOA, but more than that, she was totally ostracized. I think she only stayed a couple more months before leaving, due to the fact that people seemed to just hate her that much. Karen leaving did not solve every problem of some of the people from the community still being entitled though, and bringing new change to an old town that likes its tradition. Without Karen though, I was not getting harassed anymore and able to just do my work and watch my farm thrive. One good that came from it is that these types of people seem to love organic fruit and vegetables, so the locally sourced from a farm right near them was a big turn on. I was making good money from them and nobody else tried to steal my property anymore. I did sue the HOA for money in order to fix the damage that Karen had done and managed to walk away with some extra money in my pocket. I don't know if she is off trying to run another scam, but I can tell you one thing I do know. She learned that trying to threaten a farmer about taking away his farm and animals will leave you with the door slammed in your face. We don't screw around with anything, but when it comes to our farm, you will never see us more serious. I still hope the farm will last long after I am gone, even with the changes happening. And the next one is a petty revenge story, which is titled, "The Airplane Cleaner Stole My AirPods." So about 6 months ago, I had a layover in Houston. After deep planing and going through security, I realized my headphones had fallen out of my pocket. I submitted the lost item claim with United and gave the description of the color of the silicone case they had on them, plain info, seat number, the whole thing. I also set it to lost mode and included my phone number to call me. I emailed United a few times stating I could see that they had moved from the plane to what seemed to be the United office space. I now realize it was probably the employee lockers. After about 24 hours, I saw them go to an apartment building and I watched them go from the apartment building to the airport back and forth and tracked the schedule. I gave United the address of the employee, their schedule, and what days they had worked, and surely the home address and schedule was enough to pinpoint who it was, so they could at least deal with it internally. Wasn't exactly excited to get the AirPods back if they had been wearing them. United told me that because the AirPods had left the property, they wouldn't do anything, and I had to file a police report with Houston PD. I live in Arizona, and they closed my claim. I use Find My a lot for various air tags and things like that, so for the last few months, Whenever I see my lost headphones with the earbuds out, I hit play sound on the earbud and blast the wearer's ear out. I see them quickly go back into the case then. If they would have called me when they found them, I happily would have sent them a reward, even enough to buy their own basic pair. I understand they are expensive and not everyone can swing a pair, but I'm now slowly working towards making them go deaf, so no one else loses a set of headphones to them anymore. I think this is the pettiest thing I've ever done. And yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories and I will see you again tomorrow. And please don't forget to check out my endless playlist on the left.